Good morning and welcome to the H2G Podcast presents The Wire, Episode 6.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. You are listening to The Wire. We are ready back, and we're going to talk about some new stuff because I'm very excited. Tony's going to lead us off. We've been doing a lot of NBA and NFL, and it's not that we don't need to talk about the NBA, but you know what? We're going to see it in 6 weeks. So let's get to the topic at hand. Tony, I know you've been excited about this. We got the Masters coming. So why don't you kick it off for us? Masters talk.
Yeah, Richie, it's a little weird to be talking about the Masters right now. I mean, if you follow golf, you know, the Masters happens normally in April. You know, it's played at Augusta National Golf Course in Augusta, Georgia. And it's been around since 1934. So it's a little weird to be talking about golf right now in November. Like, really? Is this really going to happen? What's going to happen here? So, I mean, I don't know how you all feel about golf, but, you know, last year Tiger Woods won. So that was kind of a big deal because everybody thought that, you know, Tiger would never win again. I know this year Sergio Garcia had to withdraw from the Masters because he tested positive with COVID-19. Yeah, I mean, let's go around real quick if you know a little bit about golf and tell me what you think your Masters odds are on who you would like to win or probably will win. Marvin.
Well, Tony, I'm right there with you, and I love me some golf, man. I've been playing for a long time, and I gotta tell you, I mean, I'm like you. It's weird to be talking about the Masters coming up in November, you know, because the weather conditions are going to be a huge factor to play in Augusta this year. I mean, when you look at the Masters last year, Tiger Woods didn't dominate the field, and so you've got those top 10 finishers, such as, you know, Brooks Koepka, Dustin Johnson, who's the number one player in the world. It's going to be a toss-up this year. I'm interested to see how the field plays out because the odd makers really, they say a lot of things, you know, every year, but it's really anyone's tournament, you know, going into the Masters. It's every player that has been playing consistent up into the point to the Masters, you know, from, you know, PGA tournaments to the PGA Championship. It's that level of consistency. So hopefully for me, I'm predicting that Tiger will prevail and get his 6th green jacket. And I predict that it might be his last green jacket if he does win, because Tiger, as we all know, has been playing for a long time. You know, 5 green jackets is a tough feat. The field is very competitive, and Tiger had said a couple of weeks ago something that was very interesting, y'all. He said he was tired of the pundits and some of the players talking about Tiger being finished, you know, saying that, okay, his best days are behind him. Well, he did a comparison to LeBron James. He said you can go out and dominate the field for maybe a month or a year or so, but can you do it for 5 years? Can you do it for 10 years? Can you do it for an entire decade? You know, that level of consistency. So I think Tiger will ultimately put it together this time and walk away with his 6th green jacket and ultimately, you know, leave on top. You know, I think Champions Tour is right around the corner. But I think if anyone had to challenge Tiger this year, being the reigning champion, I would have to say it might have to be Dustin Johnson. He's been playing phenomenal up to this point. When you look at his short game, he's just been playing a level of consistency that's put him in this conversation. So the biggest takeaway from the Masters being in November, hopefully the players can, you know, take a closer look at the pin placements, and because that's going to play a huge factor. Augusta is an extremely hard course to play, and if anybody can get it done, I think it'll be Tiger.
That's fair, man. It's always hard for me. Tiger is, like, you know, one of my favorite athletes in general, and I think part of it being I was a caddy. So like I was like 11 years old carrying golf bags when his rise kind of started. And I just remember just being very confident seeing somebody dominate. I was like, oh, this is the greatest golfer ever. My dad was always like, Jack Nicklaus, right? So I'm very curious to see Tiger's pursuit because, he one more coat and he ties Jack for the most Masters of all. I think he's 2 or 3 behind him in total, like actual grand champions. So he's getting close. Although I believe Tiger has the most wins in PGA. So I think Tiger still has that. But I would really like to see Tiger win just because, like I said, I want to see that, like, you have the MJ and LeBron talk all the time. And at the end of the day, in an individual sport, not like a team sport, I think championships are more significant when you're talking metrics. And I want to be able to have that conversation of that Tiger is potentially better than Jack, because it's still hard for me to say that when Jack clearly is still winning. And it's really unfortunate too, because like Tiger had this massive dominance, and then obviously personal life kind of hit in, and then physically things hit in, and that's a big part of why he kind of dropped. So it's not, that's what always makes things challenging with sports. But having said that, I gotta go with Rory, man. We talked about it, Marv. Rory hasn't won one yet, and I'm shocked he hasn't won one. And maybe the crowd not being there will kind of be that albatross that he's missing, right? Because to me, when I think of everything, I love the British and all of those, and they're challenging. But I think of the green jacket. I think of the Masters, and this is gonna be a unique experience. When Tony had brought it up, I was trying to think about like what makes this unique, and it's there's nobody there. We're gonna get to see the course. Like there's no stakes, there's no people. We'll get to see it in all its beauty. Although it's gonna be a different look because it's November. So I'm very curious about that, and I think it's gonna be a really cool experience actually. And I'll be honest, I used to love golf, used to watch it all the time, and I haven't. But I do plan on watching this weekend because I'm really excited to see the course and like in its actual course. I'm used to playing on a golf course where you don't have like a gallery and you don't have all these people. So you just get to see the beauty of it, and you get to see the green and the rough, and just see how awesome it is, and usually how well they trim it and things like that. And just getting to see the beauty of Augusta is gonna be pretty crazy. So, the underdog in me is rooting for Rory McIlroy. The Tiger fan in me that wants that comparison is Tiger, but I'm gonna stick with Rory for now. So Rory's my pick.
Well, I don't watch golf, but I have played golf, and I would not want to play it in November. I don't think that would help my odds at all. Now, we were talking before the show. I can get through 9 holes or 18, whatever we're doing. I can get through. I'm not so bad that I'll get frustrated. I'm just going to lose miserably. So that would be amplified in this season. It is, when I have watched golf, it's been all about Tiger, and he's been doing it a long time. And after hearing you guys talk, I love that kind of story. And, we're going to talk fighting later on, but like Randy Couture towards the end of his career, the stuff that he accomplished, that kind of story always hits my heart. So I'll root for a Tiger in this last one.
Yeah. So let's break it down here so that way everyone gets an understanding. Justin, I agree with you. Except for Augusta, Georgia, is going to be some nice weather. So, Thursday is going to be 78 degrees, Friday is going to be 78 degrees, Saturday is going to be 69, and Sunday is going to be 74. Here's the bad news. It's going to be raining all 4 of those days. So I agree with you on that part. For Richie, he is tied right now with Sam Snead at 82 total career victories. So he'll need one more just PGA Tour victory to
be the all-time
that record, for the all-time. And then he's behind Jack by 2. So to give people some odds here's the 2020 Masters odds. You got Dustin Johnson 9-1. You've got Justin Thomas 12-1. You got Rory McIlroy 14-1. You've got Brooks Koepka, did I say that right? Koepka, 16-1. Let me see if I can find Tiger here. Let me keep looking here. You got Bubba Watson, 28-1. Patrick Reed, 28-1. Jason Day, 33-1. Jordan Spieth, 40-1. Oh, there's Tiger. Tiger's 35-1. So those are the odds, but you never know. Anything can happen on any given day. I say that all the time with any sports. Just because it's a Thursday, it's a Sunday, it's a Monday night, any given Sunday, any given one of those days, any team can win. And I think that's true when it comes to golf as well. You're playing basically the course and you're playing yourself. So as long as you do the fundamentals and all the stuff that you practice throughout the time that it takes you to get here, it really comes down to if Tiger wants to win, Tiger will win. If Rory McIlroy wants to win, Rory will win. You just have to have that mental mindset to, excel and not go backwards. But hey, it's golf. You know how it is. I play golf myself, and hey, man, I kick my own ass all the time, and not in a good way, obviously, but I definitely don't shoot what they shoot. Go ahead, Marvin.
I want to ask you guys a question. Richie, what you said about Rory, that it being his time, do you guys think that the field is intimidated by Tiger anymore? You think that the field this Sunday is just like, okay, Tiger is at this stage of his career where he's not as dominant as he once was? Some of those guys, you think they're thinking to themselves, I might have a shot?
To me, I'm just going to say this. I don't think anyone's intimidated. I don't think anyone has that mystique that Tiger used to have nowadays. But I will say this. If Tiger is even in top 3, top 5, and he's wearing his Sunday red, I guarantee people going to be scared, as far as that goes. I don't think going into the tournament, there's anyone that's concerned, Tiger's going to wash me. Because I don't think, and don't get me wrong, it was awesome to see him win last year. I thought that was incredible. And, but I don't know. I think it would have to be if he's in a position of potentially winning and it's Sunday. Yeah, I think everyone's gonna be horrified, and I think that's where you'll see a guys like Rory probably choke. But I don't think going oh crap, it's Tiger. I don't think anyone because again, from my understanding, Rory's kind of been the guy lately, but he hasn't even won a Masters, so I don't think anyone's worried about him either. I don't think there's a perennial favorite at this point. I don't think this is the glory days of 2002 to 2008.
Right. It's not the Grand Slam days.
Yeah. So I don't anticipate that.
Yeah. So like I stated in my previous statement, it hasn't started yet. So really, there's no need to be intimidated at all by anybody, because it doesn't matter until you go out on the golf course. I know the question you're trying to ask, Marvin, but I agree with Richie, and I'm going to keep it at that. I'm not going to make this long-winded. The best part about last year was Tiger, that was his first time winning coming back. Think about that. Think about how long he's been playing golf. He's never come from behind to win a major championship ever until last year, 2019 Masters. When you say it like that, I'm just really? That's shocking. That he's never ever come back, and he wasn't that far back, but it just goes to show how he's matured throughout his career and how things can happen. I would never count Tiger Woods out just because he's so dominant and you never know what's going to happen. But yeah, the game's definitely changed. The game's definitely changed, and the only person that can beat you is yourself. So we'll see what happens. I'm excited.
Tony, something just came to mind. You and I, we tried to keep some of our Steeler talks off the air so that we don't flood this place with Steeler talk. And we were talking, you said, I'd rather have a team that can figure out how to win. And I think some of that comes from experience. A team is solid when they are experienced and they've seen enough to figure that equation out in the moment. And if that's what Tiger did last year, again, coming from a guy that honestly doesn't sit down and watch it, it just kind of brought back that quote that you said to me.
Yeah, I agree with you on that, Justin. Absolutely. Anything else that wants to be said about golf? Anybody? No.
We'll see what happens. 4 days. 4 days of Augusta National. We'll see.
We'll see what happens. All right. Well, this gets me to my favorite conversation that's getting ready to go down, okay? Because if you listened to last week's Wire, you would have heard me say MAA. First off, Mr. Tony. It's not MAA, it's MMA. Okay, so that just goes to show you that I don't know anything about what we're about to talk about. But it made me think, and I sat down and I watched some videos, and I was like, oh, okay, you know, like this is in depth. I said, so let me play a game with my fellow cohorts here, and see if they're okay with it. So this is how we're gonna do it. We're gonna have a debate about the greatest MMA fighter that you all believe to you. But I need you to persuade me, a person that doesn't know that much about MMA, on why they are the greatest fighter. And then I can pick between your arguments and your retorts and all other kinds of conversations that you all might have. We're gonna keep it clean, we're gonna keep it friendly. It might get a little nasty, you know, with how hot we might get, but we're not gonna call people out their names. So whoever wants to open up the floor, I have in my mind, you know, somebody that I was persuaded on, and then I had a conversation with somebody and they was like, Anderson Silva? Really? You don't know that much about Anderson Silva then? And I was like, okay, let me keep looking into it, you know. So then I looked at some, you know, JJ, you know, I looked at Jones and they was like, So here we go. Who wants to open it up to try to persuade me on who the best MMA fighter of all times is?
I'll open up. I always feel like the person doesn't want to do that, but you know what? I know I have absolutely 100% what I consider the greatest. And then again, this is challenging, guys, because this is all subjective and this is all personal belief. But I'm going to go with why I think my guy is the best. And then I'm also going to counter before anyone else says anything on why I think the others are not better than him. So to me, Georges St. Pierre is the greatest MMA fighter. And there's going to be a lot of great names you're going to hear. And again, this is all conjecture, guys. This isn't like one definitive person. But I truly believe Georges St. Pierre is the greatest. Now, he has lost before, and so has another excellent guy, Anderson Silva, and I'm sure we will hear that. Tony kind of alluded to it. And technically, John Jones has lost / has also had no contest. So we'll get into all of this stuff during this debate, I'm sure. But I want to go over his losses first. He's had 2 losses. So he came into the UFC and he got hot-shotted. So basically he was just marketable and he was the only Canadian star. So he had 2 wins and then they threw him in to a title fight. Now, realistically, that shouldn't happen, but this was early UFC and Dana White at the time thought it was a good marketing strategy to face him against Matt Hughes, who was an American wrestler and at the time had 4 defenses already, had won. So he just thought this is a great opportunity.
Hall of Famer.
Absolute Hall of Famer. You have your Western, you know, USA cowboy versus this very soft-spoken French Canadian, and he did lose to Matt Hughes, as a matter of fact. And again, a lot of that, in my opinion, had to do with just the principle of he was too inexperienced. He was very young. I believe he was 23 at the time, maybe 24, and he lost in the first. He actually lost at the very end of the first round to an armbar. He just straight up lost. So he had to work his way back up. Went through 5 fights, and he ended up beating him for the title afterwards, when he actually had what I consider had enough experience. I don't believe anyone should ever get a fight in less than 6 or 7 fights, like a title fight. So that was a mistake, and it's not something the UFC's ever replicated, and we'll get into that later. So anyways, he ended up, after he'd won, confident, he boom, albatross off. He actually lost to this random guy, Matt Serra, and he's not random. He's actually the training partner of Matt Hughes and was an excellent jiu-jitsu guy. So he had once again had to prove himself. He didn't just get an instant rematch. He ended up beating Matt Hughes, and he ended up beating Matt Serra again for it. And then afterwards, he went on a stretch of, I believe, 13 wins consecutively. And here's the crazy part, and this is why I think this is important. This man, literally, it was never close. There was never a fight he was in where there was a split decision. He absolutely won. Now, he did not knock out everyone, and that's where I think we'll have these conversations of what we define as the greatest. But he always dominated everyone. When you went into a Georges St. Pierre fight, nobody ever picked you. You were never going to win. There have been moments with these other guys that we'll get into later, where at some point there was some doubt, including Anderson Silva after he had first lost. Now, when he wasn't losing, nobody questioned the Spider either. But Georges St. Pierre, once he became champion, nobody ever questioned him, and he never lost. And I think the biggest thing why I'm going to give it to my guy is that he ended up going up in weight no tune-up fight, straight for middleweight. He took a 4-year break, retired, king of the world, welterweight. Nobody could beat him. He retired, went into acting. 4 years later, came back and said, no, I'm not going to go back into the welterweight. I've already done that. I'm going to go into middleweight. He took that belt and then he took it and he said, vacate it. I'm done. I just wanted to show I'm still the best. Now, there's a lot of things about Georges St. Pierre I'm not thrilled with. I would have loved if him and Anderson Silva fought. That was a big super fight everyone always wanted, and it never happened. Now, there's 2 guys, in my opinion, that we can have a conversation of that are even on his level, and that's John Jones and Anderson Silva. So I'm going to go into John first because I think that's probably the better sell, in my opinion. John Jones is incredible. His only actual loss was his lack of understanding UFC and doing striking elbows vertically on a grounded opponent. It's the only reason he lost, and it's because he was just inexperienced. We talk about inexperience. So even though it is a loss, to me, it's like Georges. He was too inexperienced and made a mistake, and it's the only reason he even lost. Now, there are 2 reasons, and they're big ones to me, why I will never consider him the greatest. 2 times he failed drug tests, people. Okay? That's an asterisk to me. It's just like, it's trying to say Barry Bonds is the greatest home run hitter of all time. Now, yes, he has the greatest single season record. Yes, he was an incredible hitter, and I'm not implying of his skill or his prowess, or that he needed steroids to be successful. And during that period of time, you're also going to talk about like everyone was doing it, and that's going to be the argument sometimes with this stuff. But the reality is not everyone is juicing in the UFC, and more importantly, he was the first and only UFC fighter to be stripped due to that doping. He's the only champion to ever be caught doping. He lost his title. Then, after he took a year off because of it, he had to take a year off, he came back, fought again, fought a second time, and he did it again. And it was against the same guy twice, Daniel Cormier. So they had a third little setup and they fought. But the point being is 2 times this guy has been caught doping. And that's just reality, guys. I can't consider, like, in terms of skill set, I think he's a better skill set than Georges St. Pierre. He's an amazing striker, amazing wrestler. This dude is a beast. And I honestly, and there is one way he can sell me on being the greatest, and I'm going to say it right now. Do what Georges St. Pierre did, and it's what he wants to do. He wants to go to heavyweight, and he wants to fight Stipe Miocic. And if he fights Stipe and he beats him at heavyweight, I will 1000% say Georges is not the best, and John Jones is, even with the doping. Even with the doping, I will say he's the best then. If he can move up and not take a tune-up fight, but fight the champ, because that's what Georges did, and he did it on a 4-year break, people. So that's my only thing with John, is not his loss, because it's not a loss, but he doped. He did drugs. He got caught twice, and he was out of the UFC twice for that. Now, there's some personal things too with cocaine and a pregnant lady. I'm not going to get into that. That has nothing to do with his skill as a fighter. But the bottom line is 2 times he got caught doping. So that, sorry, I don't need to see a 3rd time. Clearly, you've cheated before, and it's possible you're doing it now. The other thing I will say is there are also 2 split decisions we can talk about later, because somebody else is going to talk about that, and I'm not just going to wail into it. As far as Anderson Silva goes, I think that dude was a beast, and if he had just stopped after the first Chris Weidman conversation of him losing, then I feel like he'd have a great argument. But the problem is, and let me just go after this real quick, he loses to Chris Weidman, fights him again, loses again. Then he gets a unanimous decision, but guess what? Boy dope, so it went no contest. Then a loss to Michael Bisping, a loss to Daniel Cormier. He beats Derek Brunson, loses again, and loses again. So unfortunately, the man went from, in my opinion, the greatest MMA fighter to just making one small mistake of, okay, fine, you lost to the guy and you wanted to fight and you lost to him again. After that, just retire. But he couldn't do it, man. And you can't go from, I don't know, 33-5 to like 33-11 in the span of like 3 years, you know? Like, to me, that already kind of puts him out of the equation. I think if you want to just go in a vacuum on his reign, during his reign, easily you could argue the greatest fighter of all time. But you have to look at careers in its totality, and I think that's why I think Anderson's kind of out. So the last person I'm just going to say very briefly is Fedor Emelianenko, but and he's a heavyweight. He's an incredible fighter and an amazing in Pride. But there's one reason why I'm already going to say Fedor's out. Doping. You were able to dope in Pride. Anyone from Pride, as based on John, who's incredible, I'm going to immediately say no thanks. Fedor was a dominant heavyweight and easily the greatest heavyweight of all time, but he was doping too. I can't support cheaters, man. I want to see a pure sport, pure fighting at the highest level. So to me, just because John's a doper, that's why George is ahead of him.
And these are people caught doping. We'll just say.
Yes. Caught doping. There are multiple people who have doped.
Yeah, for sure.
John Jones has been caught twice.
Marvin, I can let you go, or all right. I don't disagree. I don't disagree with the names, and this is. I knew this question was coming. You gave me a heads up on this. To talk greatest of all time, Richie's absolutely right. You've nailed the three that you have to bring up: Anderson Silva, John Jones, and George St. Pierre. They've all so Anderson Silva, absolutely dominant in the middle and light heavyweight divisions. He holds the UFC record of a 2,457 day consecutive win, 2,457 days as champ. He has the record of most consecutive wins with 16. John Jones, he beat Shogun Rua at 23, made him the youngest title holder in history. He's never lost the belt to an opponent, as we talked of, as Richie mentioned. And in that fight against Matt Hamill, with the exception of that elbow, he was dominating the fight. Nothing against Matt Hamill, extraordinary guy, extraordinary story, outmatched there. That was an experience. I agree with you, Richie. And before we get into the negatives, and then GSP is a technical genius. He's held both the welter and middleweight straps. He's equally dangerous striking. He's got 9 consecutive title defenses. He held the most title wins with 13, and the only person that surpassed him was John Jones with 14. And the thing that I admire the most about GSP is he's gotten revenge on both of the people that have beaten him. So that is an impressive career. So with those three, I had to look at it and what would qualify one over the three. Out of the three, GSP, because he hasn't defeated himself. I think Anderson Silva defeated himself before his fight with Weidman. I think that he had gone into this new arrogance. He's always been cocky. He's always been able to do that because of his speed, because of his technical prowess, because of how good of a martial artist Anderson Silva truly is and should be considered one of the best of all time. But he can't be the best of all time because he doesn't know when to quit. And I agree. And he's too cocky for too long. You got to understand yourself and your body. And he stopped doing that. And that's crucial in martial arts. John Jones defeats himself outside of the cage. I think his lifestyle is ultimately what leads to decisions like, I need to dope to be able to fight someone as big as Daniel Cormier, and somebody is dominant. And I not to say that he has any reason to be scared, because I think John Jones could be, again, one of the best fighters of all time, but he's just defeating himself. George St. Pierre didn't do that. However, on paper, doesn't look as good as the other two I mentioned. So I want to bring up somebody that you probably didn't expect me to say might be greatest of all time. And Tony, I think you should take a look at her. Name is Amanda Nunes. She's definitely, without a doubt, the best female mixed martial artist. There's no way to argue it, because she has defeated every champ in both the bantam and featherweight division. She not only did she beat Ronda Rousey, Cyborg, and Holly Holm, but she did it all in the first round. She's cleaned out both divisions and holds both straps right now. At this point, Dana White can't find her an opponent. Nobody can put on a show against this girl because nobody can get out of the first round with her. I think that performance, the prowess, unless she gets caught doping, you know what I mean? She is a Brazilian powerhouse, and I don't know, man. I think she's making history. And if we're talking greatest of all time, and we've got those other three to consider, she's not putting off all that negative shit. She's rising, climbing, and absolutely dominated. I'm gonna go with Amanda on that.
Marvin?
I mean, if you put the controversies of John Jones aside, and you look strictly at his career and you look at the stat line, I mean, there hasn't been a prodigy more like Jones in the MMA since ever. I mean, if you look at almost every fight he's been into, he's had a sharp strategy to win every fight, innovative techniques. I mean, I think Richie, I mean, the first loss really was because we was new to the game, unorthodox striking. And I can get that. And I can understand, you know, if you believe Pierre St. Paul is better than John Jones. I get that. But if you look at John Jones's winning percentage, I mean, 94%. I mean, come on, man. I mean, 15 world titles. 15 world titles. That's how I define a GOAT. The greatest of all time is by the titles. I mean, you can look at the cheating aspect of it, but there's controversy into that. I mean, we don't know that for a fact. I mean, I just believe that John has surpassed a lot of these guys as the number one fighter in the world. I mean, even though he's making this transition to heavyweight, I think John has proved time and time and again that there's been nobody that can really touch him. I mean, this guy's been, like I said, a master of his craft and has defeated, you know, Daniel Cormier twice. And Justin, I disagree with you. The first time he didn't need the dope to beat Daniel Cormier. That fight was decisive. That fight was easily decisive. I mean, he's lucky that he didn't catch it with that spinning back fist at the beginning of the fight. I mean, he's lucky about that. But I think in terms of who I think is the greatest of all time, I mean, it's John Jones flat out. I mean, if you put the controversies, like I said, to the side, there's really been no one that has come close in the last decade to me.
To clarify, I said he didn't need the dope to fight Daniel Cormier. He didn't need it, but he did it. That's the point. And it's a tainted story now. You know, to me,
I mean, the man was taking Cialis. Had banned substances in it. I mean, come on,
the
man.
Man is getting busted with cocaine up his nose. He's a bad man, dude. He is the baddest man on the planet. But I can't keep giving him breaks
before games.
I can't keep giving him breaks. I'm not gonna keep giving Antonio Brown breaks either, man. I'm not gonna do it. They gotta be professional. In my opinion, you are in the eye of everybody in this sport. Everybody's watching, and if you're that damn good, which he is, which makes no sense about him. That's why I'm pissed, Marvin. I want to agree with you so bad because him and Anderson Silva are my idols in martial arts. They're amazing. They have both crushed my soul with their dumb decisions, man. Dumb decisions. And I think
that's true.
I never said he needed the drugs to beat Daniel Cormier. I don't think that he did.
No, I don't. Yeah, I agree with that. I don't think anyone here is claiming that he needs drugs to beat anybody. I think his skill set alone is a testament to that. But he's very fortunate that a 30-month suspension became 18 months. Otherwise, we wouldn't even be talking about this guy right now. You saw to cut him a break, honestly, because it's not even about the cocaine. Like I said, I'm not even talking about cocaine or the hitting the pregnant woman in a car thing. I'm just talking about 2 times the dude got caught for doping. And to be specific, just as a quick final round, because I think Tony deserves to have his who he thinks. Let's just do a quick little recap. Like, here's my 15 seconds. It's hard for me to argue with Amanda Nunes. I think that's a good pick, Justin. I'm not going to go into that other than she's very dominant right now, but it's hard to judge the caliber of who she's fought because of how new Amanda's dominance has been. I think that's the only quote unquote bad thing per se, but everyone in front of her took him out and took out a doper in Cyborg. As far as John, my biggest thing is he has 2 split decisions. And honestly, Dominic Reyes and Thiago were the last 2. And most people didn't think he beat Dominic. And now he's going to heavyweight and kind of ducking Dominic, in my opinion. So that's kind of my thing with John. It's not even just a doping thing. There are fights where he looks bad. Alexander Gustafsson, like he looked really bad against him the first time. Thiago, like I said, Santos was split. Most people thought Dominic Reyes potentially could have won. There have been fights where it didn't necessarily mean John won. And for me with GSP, I'm not saying he didn't lose. He did lose. But once he became a champion, it was never close. There was never a split decision. Nobody ever thought the dude was going to lose. And until I see John buck up and fight Stipe, and he wants to. And if he does it, like I said, we will be on the wire, and Richie Phillips will amend his greatest of all time talk. I'll say, doping or not, I've never seen a man go up 75 pounds to fight another grown man. And if he does that, he's the GOAT. But until then, I'm sticking with GSP.
Well, I'm looking forward to you cutting him another break soon. And back to you, Justin. I think that Amanda Nunes is a good pick. But if I had to convince Tony in this conversation, I think that Zhang Wei Li is on her way up there and could challenge that. Yeah, fairly new to the game, but she's dominant. And I really think that Amanda Nunes wouldn't want that work with Zhang Wei Li.
It's a different kind of
dominant. Smoke.
Wouldn't want that smoke. Now, I would tell Tony to go look up a tape of Zhang Wei Li and Amanda Nunes, and you're gonna be impressed with what you see, Tony, from Zhang Wei Li. She's like gangbusters. She doesn't play around. She barely gets hit. She gives them out.
Fighter, and she's like 30 pounds less than me.
Yeah.
All right, Tony. My last 15 is real easy, because when you talk about women in the UFC, it's fairly new. So the names that come to mind probably for you are Cyborg, Ronda Rousey, and Holly Holm, because they've been the dominant ones. All I have to say is Amanda took care of all three of them in the first round with no problems, and she's still trucking.
All right. Well, everybody had great points, so I'm just going to do some questions here. For Marvin, for Jones, for me, everybody goes through their ups and downs, but mental capacity and doing what you know is right goes a long way with me. So, big Tiger Woods fan. And, Tiger went through what he went through. I was so disappointed with that. That's the only thing I can compare it to with Jones. I also like Barry Bonds, and I was upset when all that came out. Mark McGuire, Sammy Sosa, so you have all that stuff that people can have arguments about. Hands down, greatest talent probably that, for what he does. But the same could have been said about Antonio Brown. Greatest talent, could have actually been able to beat Jerry Rice on certain records, but the mentality kind of caught up with him. I do like Richie's point about if he goes up in the weight class and fights that person, how that might escalate or change Richie's point of view. So, for me, Jones would not be the one that I'd go with. For Justin, I have to ask, who's Cat Zingano? Does anybody know who Cat Zingano is?
I do not.
Do you know, Richie?
Yeah, Cat Zingano was an incredible athlete, and during her reign of terror, she actually did beat Amanda, but then went on a 4-loss streak right after it. I don't know what happened. To me, I would say it's kind of like George, where it was a fluke. Georgia St. Pierre lost to Matsera, and I think Amanda underestimated her. But the bottom line is Cat Zingano started off hot and then sizzled out right after she beat Amanda Nunes. I don't think she even won. She might have won one fight.
It'd be a good redemption fight, for sure.
She's still trying to fight, but Cat Zingano is mostly doing Bellator and left UFC because they cut her because of her loss streak.
So I had to look some things up when you were talking, and that's what came up to me was the Cat Zingano fight with Amanda, and I was just like, okay, they said it was a terrible, but you said, Richie, fluke, it can happen, right? People lose, sometimes, no one's perfect.
Any Saturday.
So I mean, if it was perfect, it'd be a different story. But I'm gonna have to say, my fellow Wire Nets that are watching and listening, that I don't think I can make a decision right now. I think that I have to do a little bit of research. I do like Justin bringing up, the person that he brought up, and Richie bringing up the person that he brought up. And so just to recap it, we've got GSP for Richie, and we've got Amanda Nunes. Hopefully I said the last name correct. for Justo. So I'm going to do some film watching, and maybe next week I'll have a decision. Everybody had great points, and thank you so much for the points that you brought up. If anybody has anything else to say real quick before we take a quick break, I'll allow the floor for anybody if they want to say anything. But I definitely want to do more research. Everyone had valid points, and I just want to see with my own eyes before I make a decision.
I don't want to take it away from Amanda Nunes, but I do have to agree. I'm sure everyone was expecting Richie and I to go at it more than we did, but I think we have a similar mindset in fighters. I think the only question with her is how long can she keep it up? She hasn't had a long run at this dominance yet, but it's at the point right now where you've got a promoter who's like, who can we put her on a card with? Because we're past the days where you can keep feeding champs scum. The fans will lose interest real quick if you just keep throwing these bum matches in. So he's searching for the one, but I do, when Richie said that, that kind of strikes a chord. How long can she be this dominant? And is there another one lurking in the shadows waiting to come up and reap havoc? But right now, man, she's looking hot.
Yeah, I mean, it's tricky. I don't want to say too much either. I like, honestly, you can't go wrong with John Jones, what Marv picked. And I think GSP is a fine pick too. I think Amanda Nunes is great. I think the only thing with the Amanda one is it's just harder in the sense of like we're talking about. We have two established guys who have a huge, long history of a career, whereas Amanda has been dominant for about 3.5 years. And I think Zhang, if she can get her weight up, that's like the only real super fight. And not to throw anything against Amanda Nunes, I think what makes it challenging is the women's division. It's kind of like the early UFC in that you have some incredible talent, but then you have a lot of people that you're throwing them in there because you're wanting to get a roster and find talent. And I think that's what makes it so hard. Is it's not like, it's kind of like, how do I want to say this? It's kind of like football, where sometimes people like say, oh, well, that's a bad win because that's a bad team. And it's, can you really judge Amanda Nunes by her competition? And outside of the three, and she's dominated the champions. So that's what, to Justin's point, and that's where it's like, okay, maybe some of these people aren't great, but the only people who are any good, she's dominated, like absolutely dominated. So I think the only thing with the Amanda thing is just like, it's just a small amount, but just like Khabib, that would have been another choice, good choice. It's hard to go against it because you just don't know who her opponent's quality will be, like John and Georges do. So I think you do have a lot to look into, Tony, because you really do have to decide, is beating the only people credible in the division that title? Because if that's fair, then fair to it, because Amanda's been dominating. But to me, that's the only Amanda slight. John, the only slight again is, do you find doping an issue, or do you find the unanimous, some of the splits an issue? And Georges, well, he's lost. I mean, any one of these you could easily make an argument against. So,
and we're all in agree that in the women's division, she is GOAT right now, right?
Oh yeah, no, she's the GOAT of women already.
Yeah.
Comparable, like nobody to even talk about. Cyborg.
I was just letting you know who's coming.
Yeah, and if she's just too small to fight Amanda right now. But if Zhang can like build up her, because she's like 115, he's like tiny, so he's 20 plus pounds behind Amanda. And that's a big. As we all know, the fight game, that's huge.
Yeah. She strikes like Mike Tyson, though.
She hits. Yeah, she hits like she's one. It's crazy.
All right, so it looks like I'm gonna do a little bit more research, and then hopefully next week on The Wire, I can give a little bit more feedback on the route that I'm gonna take. You're watching and listening to The Wire. Stay tuned. We'll be right back with you with some NFL.
Are you tired of the mundane one subject, one point of view podcast? Have you been searching for a show that combines comedy, games, current events, and hot new up-and-coming artists? Well, look no further. The H2G podcast has everything you need to start your week out right. So what are you waiting for? Stream previous seasons now at h2gpodcast.com. The H2G Podcast, Mondays at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Available at all social media platforms near you.
Welcome back to The Wire. It's time, yet again, to talk football. So real quick, I'm going to do a recap of some news here before we actually get into the actual storylines and the recaps of the game. So the Falcons waived former first-round defensive end Tack McKinley. If you don't know who he is, he was the 26th overall pick back in 2017. They have decided to go their different ways. The Pittsburgh Steelers are optimistic about Ben Roethlisberger's knee and should be able to play next week's game. However, for the Steelers, the tight end Vance McDonald tested positive for COVID, so he now lands on the reserve COVID-19 list. The Cowboys are expected to start Andy Dalton, so as long as he's been cleared. And last but not least, some good news for the Browns fans. Nick Chubb is going to be able to return from the injured reserve list and should be able to play next week. So what happened this past weekend? Wow, up and downs for a lot of teams. Blood pressure's boiling for a lot of people. So I'm going to go ahead and do the recap for you just so that way you know. The Packers took care of the 49ers 34-17. The Texans played the Jaguars, almost tried to lose to the Jaguars, but they won 27-25. The New York Giants in that awesome, amazing division took care of the Washington football team. The Ravens stood up and stood out against the Colts 24-10. The Vikings beat the Lions by 14 points, 34-20. The Titans took care of the Bears 24-17. The Chiefs tried to find a way to lose, but that offense is just so special. 33-31 against the Panthers. The Bills 44 to the Seahawks 34. Falcons, Broncos. The Falcons took care of the Broncos 34-27. The Raiders played the Chargers and they beat the Chargers 31-26. The Dolphins and the Cardinals, the story of the two young quarterbacks, my fellow men that are sitting here with me. The Dolphins took care of the Cardinals 34-31. The Steelers tried to find a way to lose the game, but ended up winning the game 24-19 over the Cowboys. The Patriots are back in the game as of right now. It's still the third quarter against the Jets. It's 17-20, but the Jets are leading, so maybe the Jets will win. Hopefully by the end, actually, I know for sure that at the end of this show, you won't know who won. So we'll be able to talk about that a little bit later. The upset of the week, not really the upset of the week, but it's definitely eye-opening. The Saints, 38 Tampa Bay Buccaneers, 3. Wow. So let's just start going around the horn right now. Or I shouldn't say around the horn, around the horn, people, but let's go around the table real quick. Justo, do you want to pass? Do you want to defer or do you want to take the ball on this game right here? You ready? I'm going to give it to you. Dolphins, Cardinals.
I'll defer on the young quarterbacks.
Okay, you'll defer. I'll give it to you. Panthers, Chiefs.
I'll defer.
Okay. All right. You gonna make me say it. Okay. Steelers, Cowboys.
I mean, it's just the game that I'm going to have the most to say about, and I won't say it all. I'll take the ball, and it's just, man, it's like I'm a broken record. I'm sitting over here talking about Ben Roethlisberger every week and how he's playing by himself, and now he's getting banged up. And he's making these decisions that aren't necessarily his right mind. And we're talking about now an 8-0 team, best record. But we can't talk about Super Bowl champions right now, right? Because they almost lost to the fucking Dallas Cowboys. The Dallas Cowboys, who have been playing like dog shit all season. How is this a Super Bowl team? I'm not convinced in my own team. I'm sick to my stomach thinking this is our shot because we do have a stellar defense this year. We have the makings of a Super Bowl team. I see the Super Bowl team, but I don't know what the hell they're doing every week. And I don't understand how after all this time, we still can't figure out how to give Ben a little bit of a break. I know that he is the best at what he does in regards to moving around and being a big guy in that pocket, but there's only so many hits the dude's going to take. And then what? Then what are we going to do if he goes down for good? I mean, he's expected to come back. The Steelers are hopeful, right? I'm still just not convinced, and I'm a little downtrodden that it was that hard to pull the dub. And then we had to wait till the fourth quarter to know that there was going to even be a dub against the Cowboys.
Yeah, I'll just touch on it for just a second and then we'll move on. You know, a lot of teams play down to their competition, and this isn't an excuse, it's just reality that in the NFL, it really is any team can win on any given Sunday. So, you know, there's Super Bowl teams that have won and have been blown out. The 1994 San Francisco 49ers lost 40-8 to Philadelphia Eagles in Week 5. The 1979 Pittsburgh Steelers lost 35-7 to San Diego Chargers in Week 12. The Steelers haven't even lost. Those were losses, but it's going to happen sooner or later. And I hope it does happen because I don't want them to have the stress of trying to go undefeated. But I do like the fact that they're playing together and they're finding ways to win. And as long as you can win in close games and you find a way to win in close games, then you're setting up also a routine of doing that. So that's also a positive that you can take away. Richie, real quick, let's give you some, I want to give you this one as a first just to see if you'll say it. But do you want to defer or play the Saints versus the Buccaneers?
Oh, give me that. But 1 second before I start on that. I agree with you guys. I understand the Steelers are playing down to their thing, but we've been shitting on the NFC East. And side note to the Steelers, they have a 70% chance of making the playoffs. Obviously, they're going to, but 70% chance. You know who has a higher percent chance, according to statistics? The Philadelphia Eagles, ironically, because of how amazing. Remember, they're 8-0 people, and still the Philadelphia Eagles have a 78% chance to make it into the playoffs, and the Steelers only have a 70. That's how bad the NFC East is. So, even though they won, did they win? I will say this too, though, in terms of undefeated. Come on, man. There's only one team they're gonna play where I could see them losing. They play in Buffalo. That's a game they could easily lose. But come on, they play in the Bengals. They gotta play the Bengals twice. Get out of here. The Bengals. They're gonna play the Jaguars. Like, one more Ravens game. Come on, bruh. Like, maybe the Bills. I see them going 14-2, 15-1, most likely 15-1. I think the only game they lose is Buffalo. But back to the game that I'm excited to talk about. My buddy, my man, he had never, ever lost 2 games and been swept in a season against any opponent in his own division until this year. They lost in the game 1 and they lost again. And I don't think this is Tom Brady's age by any means, but I think it's very obvious when you don't have a mobile quarterback and you apply pressure. And what I was incredibly interested about with the Saints game there was it was like man coverage pressing, and they were just ready. They're like, you know what, AB, you are going to be a jinx, brother. We're just going to play you one-on-one and we're going to push Tom. And that's exactly what they did. I think that's the biggest issue, and I'm not going to crap on Antonio Brown. He had no relevance in the game. I'm not saying anything disparaging. It was mostly a joke. But the bottom line is the Saints just came out and did what they always do. They always show year in and year out. They're an incredible team. And every year they always get real deep in the playoffs, and usually it's unfortunate. You want to talk about like a team that's jinxed? It's the Saints. They always, last play of the playoffs every single time, NFC Championship type stuff, they tend to just barely lose. And every year they're a juggernaut. And Drew Brees, like Ben Roethlisberger and like Tom, is this ancient relic that's still just amazing. It's crazy to watch this dude. And what I really think this came down to, in my opinion, was secretly Jameis Winston. He's on the Saints. And I'm sure he was like, you know what? He likes to do this. So, Drew, hit him up. and they lighted them up. And honestly, this game should have been an even bigger blowout. If there weren't for the fumbles, this would have been like 50-3, man. This game was, I can't say anything positive for Tampa other than, you know what, it's just one game. Because it is just one game. And that's what's going to happen to any quarterback who gets pressured as bad as Tom Brady got pressured. The other thing, 4 rushing attempts, if I remember correctly. They ran the ball forward. How on earth can you expect any quarterback to be successful when you're basically telling the defense, play back, press, in 4-man? You know what I mean? Like, Tom Brady didn't have a chance. This has nothing to do with Tom Brady. This has everything to do with being out-coached, quite frankly, and Bruce Arians should be ashamed of himself. I don't care how great those wide receivers are. I don't care that you have Tom Brady. You don't run the ball 4 times, period, in the NFL. That's abysmal. And the reason why they lost is that imbalance that wasn't necessary. They have an incredible offense. And yes, you have Tom Brady, TB12, and your wide receiver set. You just picked up your new toy, Antonio Brown. But you got to run the fucking football, guys. Pardon the language. Like, to me, that was the biggest disappointing thing. Like, if they ran the football and they still lost 43-3, I feel like this would be a more discerning thing for Tampa. But the bottom line is they lost because the coach played a poor performance. Sean Payton clearly had a great game plan and designed. And you know what? They made history. Tom Brady has been swept in the regular season by a divisional rival. That's never happened before. So congratulations, Drew Brees. You got one on Tom Brady. That's a cool little stat for you that nobody else will ever share NFL history against him as an opponent. That's a pretty cool thing. So kudos to them. Kudos to the Saints. Man, I honestly am excited about the NFC. I think there's so many insanely talented teams, and it's really, more of a toss-up. With the AFC, you still got your Kansas City Chiefs, and right now you got the Steelers. And some people are, rumblings of Buffalo. They're looking pretty damn good. We can easily debate on that if you want to down the road. I think Buffalo's a very solid contender. Baltimore is still 6-2, but I'm not seeing anything from Jackson. I don't have any faith. So to me, you're really looking at Kansas City and the Steelers. But when you hit the NFC, man, oh boy, you got some teams. You got the Saints, you got the Buccaneers, you got the Seahawks, you got the Cardinals, man. Like, you got everything except for the NFC East. We don't need to talk about them ever again. So in short, crazy good game. I did not expect this blowout. This is probably the biggest. This is the biggest whoa. I did not expect this lack of competitive game out of this. I thought this would be game of the week, and this was a stinker, honestly. I think game of the week to me was the Dolphins. That game was lit. That game was crazy, and this game was just snooze fest, quite frankly. So disappointed, but just a bad coaching game, man. But go Saints. Good job, man. Hoo-day.
All right, Marvin, I'm going to give you a game that I think that you'll just automatically talk about, but you might not, because another team in the AFC that's getting kind of hot, Richie just talked about it. So do you want to defer or play the Miami Dolphins and the Arizona Cardinals?
I'm going to defer that one because I haven't seen enough from Miami yet that screams consistency yet. Yeah, sure, Tua Tagovailoa, it looks pretty good right now. He looks phenomenal, but like I said, this is his second start. This obviously isn't an audition. They definitely know who their quarterback is going forward, but it was a great matchup. Ultimately, you wanted to see the Cardinals play with a little bit more consistency coming off that bye week. They turned over the ball a few times, but I think ultimately the Cardinals will be okay, but I'll defer that one.
Okay, it sounded like you deferred and then you kicked an onside kick and then you took the ball anyway.
I pulled a Falcons on you. I acted like I was going to pick it up, but you see what I did there?
I see what you did there. All right, so I'll give you another one. So I have two left here. The Seahawks and the Bills. Do you want to defer or do you want to take it?
Oh, yeah, I'll take this one.
Okay, all right.
Okay, y'all. Well, it's been official. Russell Wilson has officially fallen off the MVP wagon after this game. And I'll say that because the Seahawks, before the trade deadline, if you guys have followed, this is why they tried to trade for Jadeveon Clowney. They tried to trade for a few linebackers because they've been absent of a defense. They have no secondary. And when you look at the secondary, it's really not all that good. They have Jamal Adams back there, but he's been hurt. First game back. really didn't mean that much. And plus, you're asking, like I said, you're asking Russell Wilson to do too much. Too many passing attempts. And if your defense is that bad, y'all, folks out there, you can't turn over the football. I mean, he had moments in the game where he threw an interception to the end zone. He fumbled a few times. And if your defense is that bad, you can't give it up. And then on top of it, you're asking Russell Wilson to play defense too. I mean, it's just impossible. Like, he can't do everything. And on the Bills end, they're cooking. Josh Allen has turned it around. He's had an erratic last few weeks. His play has been all over the place, but he's managed to get it together. I mean, that defense was making Josh Allen look like Jim Kelly. It was crazy. I mean, they made him have a comeback week. The Bills were able to do what they wanted to do, much like the Saints were able to do what they wanted to do to the Buccaneers. The Bills' defense is just as bad. When you look at the defense, look at the defense of the Bills, they still gave up 34 points. The Bills have been giving up, they've been giving up 20 plus points for the last few weeks. They even gave up points to the Jets. So that even goes to show you, even though they're contenders, they still have a lot to prove in terms of their level of consistency. But it seems as if the Bills are running away with that division. I mean, the Patriots, the game is still going on now, but they're about to lose to the Jets. So the Bills, clearly the favorites in that division. But the Seahawks, they're not trending in the right direction right now. They really did not fix the holes in their defense. And this has been their problem for the last few years in the postseason. It's been inconsistent defensive play. And when they lost to Davion Clowney on the front line, they didn't have anyone that could pressure the quarterback. So they've got no pressure on the quarterbacks. So you're leaving the defense with plenty of holes. And Pete Carroll is scratching his head. He doesn't know what to do. You can't lean on DK Metcalf to carry the entirety of the game. You've got a great receiving core there, but they've had some injuries on the running side of the ball. Chris Carson's been out. They've got DJ Dallas. Come on. They're scrubbing the bottom of their depth chart, asking Russell Wilson to do everything. But this game was a true testament of two weak defenses. The Bills prevailed. The Seahawks, they'll get it together, but their defense clearly has to play better if they don't have a shot at going far in the postseason.
Yeah, side note, guys. The Seahawks aren't on pace for the worst pass defense in history. They're about to destroy it, shatter it. They're about to be 1,000 worse than the 2011 Packers, who have the current record at 47.96. They are on pace for 5,794 pass yards allowed. So if they run into the Saints or the Buccaneers, how on earth are they going to stop any of that? I don't care how good Russell Wilson's playing, to Marvin's point.
All right. Well, I'm glad that you brought up some statistics right there, Richie, because we're going to do a real quick game before we head off. What I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you a question. We'll go around real quick, and you have to tell me the player that has it for the statistics. So I'll give you an example, and Richie can go first. Which quarterback has the most interceptions in the National Football League right now?
Most?
The most interceptions thrown.
This should be really easy. Don't you dare get this wrong.
It's gotta be walk it to him, Carson Wentz.
It is.
It's gotta be.
It is.
More like give it to him, Carson Wentz.
All right. So thank you, Richie. Marvin, which quarterback has the most sacks right now with 32 in the National Football League?
Which quarterback has been sacked the most?
Correct.
Oof.
Marv, I think it's my guy. I can't confirm, but I think it's my guy.
Sacked the most. Something tells me I want to say Phillip Rivers, but I'm not sure. He gets sacked a lot.
He does. I think it's Joe Burrow or Carson Wentz. It's gotta
be Joe Burrow.
Or Carson Wentz.
Right, either of those two.
Is it our boy?
Carson Wentz.
Carson Wentz. Yep.
I can see it. bastard. Sorry for the language.
Yeah, pause, folks out there. Yeah, I don't know why I got that wrong. My bad. I clearly saw a game last week where Carson Wentz rolled out to the right, looked downfield, didn't see anyone open. And I'm thinking, okay, like maybe you guys on this panel, he's going to throw it away. It's not going to be intentional grounding. He literally looks at the defender, goes down, and fumbles the football. That was one. I've never seen anything like that. You can't even do that on Madden.
It won't let you.
It won't let you.
It won't let you. All right, Justin, which running back in the National Football League has the longest run for 94 yards this season?
Oh boy.
You got to know this one, baby.
I'm gonna phone a friend, both of them at the same time.
I'll give you a hint. I won't give you the direct answer. He was an Alabama boy.
Alabama boy.
Somebody we refer to him as the cowbell running back. He was the single reason the Patriots got stomped last year in the playoffs.
Oh my God.
Tennessee Titans?
I got nothing, man.
No.
Biggest biceps in existence.
Biggest.
Marvin. I'll let Marv take this one.
King Henry.
Yes, King
And
Henry.
I'm not even going to call him Derek because that's not his name.
No,
it's King Henry.
It's King Henry. That's right. That's right. So, real quick, Justin, I'll give you another one. Which quarterback, as of right now, has the most rushing touchdowns with 8? Yes, I said 8.
8 rushing touchdowns? So is that?
He's tied with King Henry. 8 touchdowns, but he's a quarterback.
I know this one.
Is it? My God.
Walk it to. Kidding. It's not Carson Wentz. I'm kidding.
My guess, my gut is telling me Patrick Mahomes, but
Nope.
I'm probably off.
Nope. Anybody else want to take a guess before I move on?
Yeah.
Richie, want to go?
Marv, you go, but I think I know who it is.
The only reason
wanna go?
I know this is because this man is on my fantasy team and he is lighting it up. Kyler
Knock the
Murray.
game.
Kyler
That's
Murray
right.
is correct. All right, so moving on.
Beast.
Wide receivers in the NFL. Who has the most receptions so far in the year with 63? It's just a guess.
I know this one. Actually, I do know this one because I think they're also leading in total yards in the NFL right now, which you wouldn't expect when you have teams like Seattle and Arizona and all these other ones. But it's Stefan Diggs of Buffalo. He actually has the most receptions.
He does have the most receptions.
So
Do you
my
know
fantasy team as well.
who knows who has the most receiving touchdowns in the National Football League right now?
Oh shit! I don't know.
9.
Oh, Devontae Adams.
He has 8.
And it's not deep either.
Is it Chase Claypool?
DK Metcalf.
Nope, he has 8 as well.
Damn, who's back?
Sorry, boy, Tyreek
Hill.
Tyreek Hill, yes sir, yes sir.
That's
It's
me.
gotta be.
That dude scores every week.
Of course he does. All right, here's one of my favorites.
Okay.
One of my favorites. Who is leading the National Football League on the defensive side, individual player with sacks?
I feel like Richie knows.
Oh yeah. Well, first of all, my boy Miles, but it's not just Miles. It's also the other guy I've talked a million times over, and the boy makes bank. Aaron Donald, the greatest defensive player in modern history. That's even over Ray Lewis. He's a defensive tackle, people, who gets doubled all day, and he is leading the league with 9 sacks. I know that one for sure.
So Miles Garrett and Aaron Donald both have 9 sacks, but there's a player that has 10.
What?
Anybody want to take a guess on the player that has 10?
Who has 10?
Yannick.
Yannick
Yes.
Ngakwe. Yannick
Yes.
Ngakwe's got 10?
He's got 10 sacks.
Man, that guy he's still going.
He is still going. All right. Last but not least, well, actually, I'll do one more after this because I just want to. In the National Football League. Wow. Maybe that's a really terrible one to do. Let's do this one. This makes it a little bit better. In the National Football League, who has the most interception yards at 110 yards? Yeah, this is a complete total guess.
Buda Baker.
Nope. It's very close. Buddha has 90. That's a really good guess.
You would have got it if you didn't get caught by DK Metcalf. You should get that touchdown.
What'd you say, Justin?
I didn't say nothing.
Oh, okay.
Didn't say
This is decent. This is a defensive player.
Defensive player.
I was close. It's not Buddha.
Might not.
Malcolm.
Nope. Malcolm Butler's on there. That's a good guess. Malcolm Butler's at 97. It's Dante Jackson of the Carolina Panthers, which at 110. I was going to do interceptions, but there was like 5 people tied with 4 interceptions, so I didn't want to do that. And finally, last but not least, I just want to do this real quick because I think it would be fun. In the National Football League, with at least 11 attempts, you all should know this. I'm sorry, 18 attempts, 11 made. Which field goal kicker is the worst percentage kicker in the National Football League with 11 field goals out of 18 attempts at 0.611%?
Wow, I'm trying to think.
Steven Gostowski.
Steven
Gostkowski?
Yeah.
Yes. That
Reason
is
why I
correct.
know that, because all you fancy footballers out there, leave him on the waiver wire. Don't pick him up. Not even worth it. The stats say it all. Thanks, Tony, for letting everyone know that.
You're very much welcome. The stats say it all. So yeah, I just wanted to do something a little bit different, to kind of close out the show, kind of get us all, engaged with what's actually going on. It's kind of, midway season. We're actually a little bit past the midway season, but it's, going into the third quarter of the National Football League. It's going to get a lot tighter. Some teams are going to lose to teams that they shouldn't lose to. Some teams are going to beat teams that they should beat, and they're going to beat teams that they probably shouldn't beat. So that's just how it's going to happen. You're listening and watching To The Wire. It was a great talk about golf. Make sure you follow up and you watch the Masters this weekend. MMA debate, I'll have more information for you later on, and NFL talk next week. But we have something special. We're going to do GOAT wrestler next week in the WWE. Right?
In the WWE?
Is that what we're doing?
Or just greatest wrestler?
Ever. Greatest wrestler ever.
Okay.
WWE, WWF, WCW, AWA, NJPW.
ECW, all the W's.
OVW.
All the W's.
All the wrestlers. We're going to also do the MAA. That's a joke. It's not going to be the MAA.
ECW.
But see,
All
we
right.
didn't forget about y'all fighting fans out there,
Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you next week.